IGN is under fire, ladies and gentlemen. One of their reviewers yesterday, Dan Stapleton, gave a review of Starfield. He reviewed the game and scored it a 7 out of 10. And I was like, wow, this doesn't seem right. All the other news outlets gave it solid scores, 8s, 9s, even perfects. But for whatever reason, IGN decided to give it a 7 out of 10. And that's fine. People can have their opinion on a game, decide whether they like it or not. I'm not against that. It's free speech, baby. But when you look at all the other IGN outlets, they rated the game much notably higher than what IGN USA did. So I was like, that doesn't seem right. Now, don't get me wrong, I never usually take IGN serious in anything that they say. There's been a lot of weird stuff that they've said and done throughout the years, from journalists being plagiarists to most of their reviews not really having that much of a cohesiveness or even integrity, which that's important. If you're a gaming journalist, when you review something, your integrity has to be intact. Now, I'm not saying if you're some smuck YouTube like me or whoever that you're some gaming journalist, but when you're being a professional journalist for a media outlet like IGN, you gotta not have a personal bias. Now, accusations of being anti-Xbox is a huge accusation to have placed on top of you, but when you take a look at Dan Stapleton's Twitter history, you can clearly see one thing is a common denominator. He is super salty about the ZeniMax acquisition from Xbox. Yeah, this guy has not gotten over it. You can see in a lot of tweets that are talking about Microsoft and Starfield that he's attacking them flat out and just basically insulting the game and calling it a failure and just degrading it way ahead of time, way before this game came out. For months, for weeks, he was already against the game. He had a clear bias against it. Taking a look at some of these tweets, it's like, holy cow, dude. We know that you're upset. Get over it. Starfield is arguably the biggest game of the year in terms of anticipation from fans and ambition from Bethesda. This game has a lot going for it. I am going to be giving my personal impressions of it. Is it a perfect game by any means? No, I'm going to throw that out the window. The issue here, though, is that when you see a very distinct difference in IGN itself, from IGN USA to IGN Worldwide, it's clear that Dan Stapleton has a bias against it. I mean, IGN Spain gave it a perfect score, a 10 out of 10. Japan did as well, and Brazil gave it a 9.5. But Mr. Stapleton gave it a 7 out of 10. There's actually a tweet out there that has a huge collection, like a montage of Stapleton's tweets from a user called Senjutsu Sage, who says, revisit the Starfield IGN reviewer Dan Stapleton's opinion of Xbox having Starfield as an exclusive. If anybody thought this guy would be honest about this game, I have a bridge to sell you. Common trend, he does not like that Starfield's Xbox exclusive. There's more too. And that's an exposure. That is actually hilarious. And he's right. If somebody ahead of time is going to have a bias and not go in with a neutral outlook on the game, who would have honestly thought that this review could be taken seriously from them? You can see in this screenshot, Jeff Grubb said Starfield is exclusive to Xbox and PC, period. This is me confirming that. And this was back in 2021, May 2021. Dan Stapleton says, not really something to gloat about. This is an example of a game being taken away from an audience that would have otherwise had access to it, as opposed to one that only existed because of a first party investing in its platform. So clearly, 3 years ago, this guy was already against this and pissed off. Super salty. You can see here, he's talking about Spider-Man. Spider-Man was announced as a PlayStation exclusive, and you will not find any examples of me saying that industry consolidation is good for gamers. Good for first parties? Absolutely. But those are not the same thing. Franchise does not equal individual game. The fact that Starfield was announced without specific platforms means it was not announced as a platform exclusive as Spider-Man was. To me, that sounds like a little bit of cope as well. This guy's hanging out at the Cope Cabana, right? At the Copacabana. And you can see he's just justifying it by saying PlayStation doesn't own Spider-Man. Microsoft could go to Disney tomorrow and outbid Sony for the next exclusivity contract if it wanted. Oh, let me get off right the bat. Alright, I'm not pissed off that Stapleton reviewed the game as 7 out of 10. In fact, there were some points he made in the review that were actually pretty fair He mentioned disjointed space travel, which I think the space travel is not as ambitious feeling as I'd hoped. I was thinking more of a little bit more of a No Man's Sky, more open, seamless transitions between landing and taking off, non-existent maps, aggravated inventory management, which this is a Bethesda game, guys. You're going to be encumbered every fucking 5 minutes because of all the stuff you're scavenging, and that it's a slow rollout of essential abilities, which I didn't even know there was powers until 8 hours in the game just about. But he did go on to praise the mystery story behind it and that he enjoyed it so much that he returned for seconds in a new game plus after 60 hours. But the topic of concern here is the scoring. All right, now a 7 out of 10 on paper, that's passing. That's a 70. If it was a 70 to 100 grading scale, it's satisfactory, right? Is it a game of the year score? No, unfortunately it's not. But the main issue here is IGN decided to rate it a 7 out of 10 in the United States when all the other outlets are reviewing it a perfect score. Then you see these accusations of a bias against Xbox. This guy's under fire, guys, and this ain't a good look. It would be different if he wasn't attacking Starfield from 2021 and being a salty little biatch about it, but let's be real here. He was going to always review Starfield as a bad score. He was not going to acknowledge it, not give it anything higher than a 7. I'm honestly surprised this guy gave it a 7 out of 10. But that's the thing about IGN. IGN has always been filled of little bitches like that. I don't know what it is about that outlet, but I really cannot take that outlet serious, especially when you have these salty guys on social media that are crying about acquisitions and game reviews and scoring the stuff and basically having a bias towards a lot of things. Didn't they rate a video game bad because it had too much water? Despite all of his criticisms, he did recommend the game in the end, saying that eventually it becomes engaging, and I think that's the general consensus. People say that it's a slow simmer to when it gets very nice, and that the post-end game stuff is really awesome. I'm about 8 hours in. And apparently Stapleton's been a reviewer for 19 years, so congrats to him on that. But this review does have a slight taste of being biased because of him being salty because of that ZeniMax acquisition. I think he's taking out that situation on the game itself instead of looking at the game for what it is and grading it based on what it is. You go back to all the other outlets that are reviewing this game and they're giving it pretty solid reviews. But IGN, no, 7 out of 10. It just doesn't add up. And this IGN review is being termed as biased by the Twitterverse. A lot of people are going at it saying IGN can't be taken serious. IGN's been dead and buried for years. And you got to think about it. When journalists hold these grudges, it's almost kind of like how Harry Potter's Hogwarts Legacy got a score of a 1 from Wired from somebody that was biased against J.K. Rowling. This journalist is biased against Microsoft in their acquisition of ZeniMax. He decided to take it out on Starfield. That's the optics, guys. Optics. Even if this isn't the case, optics is everything. And this guy clearly had a salty thing against ZeniMax being acquired. What does he do? Bitches about Starfield for 3 years, gives it a bad review. Yikes. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to touch on this because this game is out. I've been playing it nonstop. I'm about 8 hours in, maybe even 9. I'm enjoying it. Sure, it does have some of its problems, some of its glitches, some of its empty feeling. It's a Bethesda game, though. I've seen people saying, oh, I was expecting No Man's Sky, and I felt like I was getting Fallout. Well, no fucking shit. It's made by the people that made Fallout. What do you expect? For me, yeah, sure, it's not anything brand new. They didn't make a giant leap. I've played games like this for years from Bethesda. I was looking for a little bit more, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not over here trashing Bethesda 3 years in advance just to trash the game when it finally comes out. This almost seems like a coordinated effort to be biased against it. So let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.